Brendan Gibbons, the environmental reporter for the Rivard Report. Scott Huddleston, county government reporter for the San Antonio Express News. Thank you for joining us today on The Conversation Continues. Brendan, the mayor was very adamant at his vision speech last week. No more bonuses for the heads of CPS Energy and the San Antonio water system. Why is this significant?
It was pretty interesting. He first made that announcement to me after viewing months of data that I had compiled into the pay, bonuses, expense accounts, and other facets of compensation at San Antonio's two municipal utilities, San Antonio Water System and CPS Energy. There's a huge pay disparity, which is pretty interesting between the heads of SAWS and CPS. Paula Gold-Williams' total compensation this year approached $1 million for Robert Puente, CEO of SAWS. It's much closer to $600,000. I did a review of other publicly owned water and power utilities in the United States because I really wanted to see, are these people, it seems like high salaries for San Antonio, and that's the feedback I get from a lot of my readers, but I really wanted to put it in context. So I went and did some comparisons with a lot of the top 20 similar utilities and came to find out that Paula Gold-Williams' pay is pretty in line with a lot of those other CEOs in her field. Robert Puente, despite being paid much lower than Paula Gold-Williams, is among the higher paid on his end. So what you see is this interesting pay disparity between water and power, and that's a lot of because of the influence of the private sector on power utilities.
There are a lot of publicly owned electric companies out there, not a whole lot of publicly owned municipal water companies.
Exactly. And so when the mayor saw a lot of this, he's voted for pay raises and bonuses for these officials in the past. He voted for Paula Gold-Williams most recently, and he was absent for a vote of Robert Puente, but he had a statement that was read in support of Puente's performance as head of SAWS, and he seems to have sensed a political tide shifting, I would say, in whether the public is willing to accept these kind of bonuses. And no more clear example than the passage of Proposition B last year that would limited the city manager's salary in San Antonio. That was kind of, I think, the writing on the wall about how the public feels about this kind of compensation.
Yeah, I think that when you take a look at people who are paid $1 million a year and $600,000 a year respectively, the idea of giving them a bonus, which is the bonus alone is more than the average San Antonio's annual salary, seemed to kind of stink in the nostrils of a lot of people. As you mentioned, we saw that with former city manager Scully.
It'll be interesting to see how effective the calls are to change that structure, because the boards of SAWS and CPS have put a lot of thought into that bonus structure. I interviewed Ed Kelly, a prominent figure on the CPS Energy board, and he was very clear about wanting a lot of the CPS Energy CEOs paid to be at risk. So the idea that you have to meet certain performance metrics, otherwise your pay is going to be about half of what it could be otherwise. So it's not like it's very arbitrary from their perspective, but I don't know if a lot of the public will see it that way.
Scott, the Alamo continues to cause controversy. Everybody's invested in the Alamo, especially in San Antonio, but fill us in on where we stand with the Native American burials and what is the threat that issue could derail the entire revitalization of the plaza, much like it did 25 years ago.
Well, first of all, the Tape Palam Coatigan Nation has a couple of affiliate groups that are part of that discussion, and one of those is the American Indians in Texas at the Spanish Colonial Missions, which is headed by Ramon Vasquez, the executive director. And so that group has filed a notice declaring an abandoned cemetery in that area with the Bexar County Clerk's Office, and the city and the Alamo Trust and one of the property owners have filed letters of opposition. So that's one issue that could end up in court over, any restrictions on that land and, how that might affect the project. We're talking about an area that also includes the Federal Building and the Emily Morgan Hotel and that whole city block behind it. So that's pretty significant. And then also Ramon Vasquez's group is collecting funds for, a federal lawsuit that it plans to file, alleging that this project is being managed in discriminatory ways.
Now, why can't we get over this? Like we mentioned, it was 25 years ago, the last time we tried a major reimagining of Alamo Plaza. The same issue of Native American burials hung us up then. Why can't we come up with a plan and move forward with this?
Well, it's really moving forward, and it's actually, beginning to happen. And so I think there's a lot of tension that's going along with that. And so there's kind of a local versus statewide and regional tension that's occurred. The Alamo Trust has created a 6-member Native American advisory committee that has helped develop a 17-page protocol on what to do with human remains. And Vasquez's group has been left out of that project. His group is not a federally recognized tribe, and part of the protocol is that only federally recognized tribal members would be represented on this group, and he feels that he's basically being legislated out of the process, even though his group has been trying for years to be federally recognized.
Real quickly, since we're running out of time, the cenotaph issue seems to have been settled. Is this the last major issue standing in the way of actually going in there and actually seeing this project finally come to fruition, or are there other issues we should watch for?
The street closure and how the traffic is going to be rerouted is always a big deal for people who are concerned about, what it's going to be like to drive downtown. But also access to the plaza, the idea of lowering the plaza by 16 inches and having some kind of railing around it does not play well with a lot of folks.
Scott Huddleston is the county government reporter for the Express News. Brandon Gibbons, the environmental beat over at the Rivard Report. Thank you very much for joining us on The Conversation Continues.